Thank you all so much for waiting. Unfortunately, drinks after, Congressman Salmon. Thank you for sticking around. I'm honored to introduce our closing keynote speaker, Congressman Matt Salmon of Arizona. He is truly a remarkable leader in the Asia policy field, and he is one of the only members of Congress, this is rare, to be fluent in Mandarin, a feat I gave up in college freshman year when I learned that intermediate Chinese was across campus at 7 a.m. Congressman Salmon is the chairman of the House Foreign Affairs Asia and the Pacific Subcommittee, one of the most critical and influential committees up here on Capitol Hill. He has long recognized the strategic value of the Asia-Pacific region to U.S. interests, the gravity of human rights and democracy issues in Asia, and the importance of putting our allies and partners in the region first and making sure those alliances are updated and strengthened. He has held a superb and consequential set of hearings up here on Capitol Hill this year, and a lot of hearings too. And we are very grateful to call him a good friend. So please help me in welcoming Congressman Salmon.
Well, thank you. It's really great to be here. As was mentioned, I've been working in or around Asia for a lot of years, probably a lot more years than some of the people in this room have lived, but not quite as much as some of the other people have lived, so that's a good thing. And I really appreciate the National Bureau of Asia Research for inviting me to speak at this year's Engaging Asia Conference. I wanted to express my appreciation, particularly to Roy Camphausen for all the great work that you do, directing NBR's Washington office, and the wonderful team that you've put together. They help us out immensely in trying to focus on the things that are truly important in the region. I'd like to also recognize some of our distinguished guests here, including the Singaporean Ambassador Mirpuri and the Taiwanese Representative Shun. We appreciate you being here today, too. The theme of today's event, Pacific Powers, is an appropriate title given our lofty objectives in Asia. As a Pacific power, our alliances and partnerships in the Asia-Pacific form the foundation of our involvement in a very dynamic region. When we think of the relationship between the United States and Asia, we typically think of the executive branch's role in molding and fostering these relationships. While the executive branch has made some achievements regarding our presence in Asia, it's also time for Congress to be recognized for its robust engagement in Asia. As the chairman of the Subcommittee on Asia and the Pacific, I strive to bolster Congress's efforts to engage with Asia. And I'm advocating for American interests and for the American people on Asia-Pacific issues. At a time when a rising China is competing for influence with our allies, our partners, our friends, and conflict in the Middle East and Eastern Europe and fiscal austerity here at home have diverted our money and our attention, we've struggled to maintain our priorities in this vital region. But with growing economic and security relations with Asian countries, as well as a changing and more politically active Asian American population, Congress will inevitably focus on the region more and more into the future. As the theme of this event has highlighted, a key component to the U.S. rebalance in Asia is strengthening and modernizing our alliances and our partnerships in the region. This means enhancing political and military cooperation, deepening trade ties, and strengthening regional architecture based on international standards and norms. Our treaty alliances with Australia, Japan, the Republic of Korea, and Philippines, and Thailand are aptly called the cornerstones of our relationship with Asia. These alliances are the very heart of security and stability within the region. The U.S.-Japan and U.S.-Korea alliances are twin pillars guaranteeing security in Northeast Asia. These alliances have helped keep the peace for more than 60 years, allowing Northeast Asia to develop into the vibrant part of the region it is today. Our three nations likewise share common democratic values that serve as a model to the region as a whole, and our relationship is further strengthened by our commitment to countering the rogue regime that is North Korea. Our bilateral relationship with each country remains strong politically, economically, and militarily. Challenges remain, though, in the region because of historical issues. I really hope that Congress has provided at least a modicum of an effective outlet for Japan, Korea, and the victims of Japan's actions in World War II, so that we can atone for some of the past injustices and look forward to new beginnings and stronger relationships. In Southeast Asia, we share a storied alliance with Thailand, but the May 2014 coup has put a serious strain on our relations. The restoration of a credible, democratically elected Thai government will be vital to returning the U.S.-Thai relationship to a much better place. And we stand shoulder to shoulder with the Philippines on security challenges confronting the region today, from our mutual defense treaty to our recent enhanced defense cooperation agreement. We've also enjoyed a long and close strategic partnership in other countries in Asia, with countries like New Zealand, Singapore, and Taiwan. Singapore has long been a financial and economic hub in Southeast Asia, and Singapore and the United States signed a free trade agreement more than 10 years ago. Our decades-old security relationship has also grown, with Singapore now providing support for forward-deployed U.S. littoral combat ships. Taiwan is a very special place for me. Many of you might know I served as a missionary back in 1979. I came home in 79. I went there in 77. It was a 2-year mission for the Mormon Church. That's where I learned Mandarin. Some of the people that I served with there might argue I didn't learn it very well. But I've gotten lots of practice both there and since I've been back. I've been back to Taiwan many times since I served there. I'll be going back again, leading a delegation from Congress in November. And I've experienced firsthand this very vibrant partnership with Taiwan. In fact, I was there during the time when Jimmy Carter severed diplomatic ties with Taiwan, but it was also a pivotal time when Congress passed the Taiwan Relations Act. If Congress hadn't stepped up to the plate, I'm not sure that would have gotten done. So there is an important role for Congress. As a modern, democratic, and economically developed society, Taiwan has much to contribute to Asia and the world. And I am concerned we are not living up to our expectations in the Taiwan Relations Act. However, I hope that in the next year we're going to be able to provide more clarity to that, and abide by our commitments and provide for the security and the stability of Taiwan. They'll be having an important election right at the first of the year, and we're all watching that and very supportive of how this robust democracy is evolving. I strongly support Taiwan's influence in the world and being able to participate in more and more international organizations. Earlier this year, I introduced legislation calling for Taiwan's inclusion into Interpol as an observer at the annual meetings. I think it's crucial that it's all hands on deck when it comes to world security, and Taiwan is a vital part of that. The growth and dynamism of Asia has also prompted us to seek out new partners throughout the region. The United States and India, the world's oldest and the world's largest democracies, have steadily deepened cooperation on a whole host of issues, from counterterrorism to peacekeeping to maritime security. Prime Minister Modi's Act East policy with India, seeking to play a more active role in East and Southeast Asia, is a natural complement to our own rebalance. However, our economic and commercial relationship has not progressed as quickly as our deepening political ties have. We have taken the first step by elevating commercial issues in last week's first strategic and commercial dialogue, but I also have a deep and abiding hope that we can move forward on concrete steps like negotiating a high-quality bilateral investment treaty, a BIT, that would benefit investors in both of our nations. Southeast Asia is also of growing importance to the United States, both in relations with individual countries and with our region as a bloc. ASEAN countries together comprise our fourth largest trading partner after Canada, Mexico, and China. ASEAN member states are at the forefront of the maritime disputes in the South China Sea, supporting regional economic integration, like the ASEAN Economic Community, will not only improve economic ties among ASEAN nations, but also create a larger, more predictable market for U.S. exporters and investors. One of the best ways to strengthen and modernize our economic alliances and partnerships is through the Trans-Pacific Partnership, lovingly known around here as TPP. While we have not seen the final agreement yet, I hope these tense and long negotiations indicate that the agreement will be of a very high standard. An agreement like TPP could bring together long-standing allies and partners like Australia, Japan, and Singapore and promote our shared values and ideals with new partners like Malaysia and Vietnam. TPP will hopefully, in later rounds, expand to include other allies and partners like South Korea and Taiwan, bringing more of the region into this rules-based system that includes not only common treatment for goods and services, but common standards for labor and environment. Ideally, TPP would be a great deal for America and a great deal for Asia. I would add a great deal for the world. We must also continue to increase our military and our security cooperation in the region, especially regarding the South China Sea issues. I've kept a close watch on developments in the South China Sea, which affects not only the Philippines, but also our own economic and strategic security and our interests in freedom of navigation. I'm troubled by the intense speed of China's buildup of artificial islands in international waters, as well as the placement of military assets on them, and I'm not alone in that. A lot of members of Congress are deeply troubled by that. I support and urge our military to fly, sail, and operate wherever law allows, to indicate that neither the United States nor international law recognize China's Great Walls of Sand as their sovereign territory. While our fiscal situation at home makes it difficult for us to increase our assistance, we can make sure we're using our existing resources effectively. We can also leverage our existing alliances and our partnerships to help promote cooperation with our new partners. For example, we can build our existing trilateral security cooperation with Japan and Australia to help ensure security for the entire region. Finally, we and our allies and partners must continue to push China to be a more responsible stakeholder in the development of the region. From the ASEAN nations insisting on a binding and meaningful code of conduct for the South China Sea, to those in the region who joined the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank insisting on high standards of transparency and governance, we can send China a clear message that we welcome them as a partner, but we expect them to adhere to and foster internationally acceptable norms. As I continue my chairmanship of the Asia Pacific Subcommittee, I'm going to continue to explore ways for Congress to improve our support of strengthening our existing alliances and partnerships, building new partnerships, new relationships, and engaging in regional institutions. The United States has a significant strategic, security, and economic interest in Asia, and we must put our very best foot forward and a very sincere effort to make the rebalance of Asia a priority and a reality. Thank you very much. I appreciate the time. I am supposed to be going over to meet with one of the presidential candidates that's been doing really well lately. But before I do, and it's not who you're thinking, but anyway. Before I leave, I wanted to entertain two questions. How's that? Would that be all right? Any questions? Yes, ma'am. Yes, I know that. Thank you.
Thank you. So my question is regarding your perspective and your actions in the House, given the recent visit with President Xi and our President Obama, and also with the the recent actually exchanges at the United Nations in New York between the chairman of Vietnam, Mr. Justin Sang, in regard to what President Xi had to say. Given all of that together, what would you think the U.S. and Vietnam relations can progress in both the TPP, economic trade, human rights, and also security in Southeast Asia?
Absolutely. I was very privileged to lead a delegation just about 6 months ago to Vietnam. We were able to visit both sides of the island and both Ho Chi Minh City and at the other end Saigon. I'm sorry. But it was a wonderful trip. We met with virtually I think all of the government leaders while we were there. We met with a lot of the business people, and we met with a lot of the human rights activists. And I was just really impressed with the good feelings toward the United States that emanated from the leaders, both business and government leaders, and the desire to move to that next realm of increased partnership and support for one another, friendship. And as I come back and spoken with a lot of my colleagues about that trip, it was a bipartisan delegation. I've just been really impressed that most people see Vietnam as a country that is just really on the move in all kinds of ways, very positive ways. There are some human rights issues that we still continue to be concerned about, and we will voice those concerns. But from a bilateral relationship, I see it right now as a very good one and opportunities to be an excellent relationship. I think that Vietnam probably benefits more than any other country in the whole TPP agreement. I believe that. And having met with some of the leaders over there, I think they share those feelings as well. I think there are incredible opportunities. And I'm hopeful that we'll be able to finally tie the knot. Did you have another add-on to that?
Yes, I'm not sure if you had the U.S. and America and Vietnamese American. So I am concerned regarding human rights. I'm not sure Vietnam has taken adequate actions in response to our demands.
I hope I clarified that. I agree with you on that. I think that they have not moved nearly enough on the human rights issues, and we have shared those concerns with them. But I believe that there is a keen interest as they want to improve bilateral relations with us to get that done. I think there are a lot of good NGOs on the ground over there to follow that and get that done, and our hope is to keep a watchful eye and try to move in that direction. I think that there are a lot of issues that we're still going to have to work through, and that's probably one of them, but I don't think anything is insurmountable. I think that the motivation to improve relations is definitely on both sides.
I'm going to take this one last question. And then why don't we take the one in the back as well?
I'm sorry, could you state that?
Movement at all? The unification of the Korean Peninsula?
What about it?
Do we have anything on, is the movement on the table on that, or no?
No, there's no movement as far as, I mean, North Korea is under a rogue regime at the current time. There is no dialogue whatsoever. There hasn't been any state-to-state dialogue really to speak of with Kim Jong-un, and I don't see that happening in the near future unless something major happens. So I don't think there's any significant effort to do reunification or to make that happen. I know there's a lot of people on both sides that would love to see that happen as long as it's under a thriving democracy, with Seoul, as the head of that. But as the capital, but I think that right now we're light years away from anything like that. Thank you very much.